Okay, we are now doing the preview for December 29th. It's technically December 29th where I am, as it's past midnight, which means it's December 29th where you are, because it's past midnight everywhere except maybe in Hawaii. But anyways, I don't know how many people in Hawaii are going to get woke up in the middle of the night and go, what the hell? But anyways, if you are, hola. Or, no, that's Spanish. You guys know what I mean. Aloha. There you go. It's close enough. It's close. So we're going to start things off with Winnipeg and St. Louis. So this one starts at noon, my time, which is Pacific, 3 o'clock Eastern. This should be a really fun rematch. There are some rematches tomorrow. So the Winnipeg Jets, 21-14-3 overall. They're in against the St. Louis Blues, who are 25-8-6. Over their last 10, Winnipeg 4-4-2, so a bit of a troubling trend recently. Whereas the St. Louis Blues 7-3, and they've won 7 in a row, and they're trying to make it 8. And the Jets are trying to stop that, but the Jets couldn't stop them last time. Jets last 5 games, they lost 5-4 against St. Louis. They did come back in that one. It was a spirited affair, but they still lost it. They lost 6-2 against Montreal. That was a home game as well prior to that. Prior to that, they went to Minnesota, won 6-0. And that was after 2 more losses at home against Chicago 4-1 and 6-3 against Carolina. Winnipeg's better on the road than they are at home, so that's a positive if you're a Jets fan looking at this one. St. Louis, I think they'll be better on the road than they are at home. It doesn't really matter over this winning streak. They beat Winnipeg 5-4, of course. They beat LA in LA 4-1. They won in San Jose 5-2. At home, they beat Edmonton 2-1, and they beat Colorado 5-2. And Colorado hasn't really been quite the same since that loss. So for St. Louis, they can pull further away into first place in their division, playing the best hockey in the NHL. Goals leaders for the Winnipeg Jets, Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele both have 17. The assist leader, Line A and Scheifele are tied for the lead there with 23 shots. Kyle Connor has that all to himself. He has 130. Points per game, Scheifele, 1.05. You can set your watch by him. He is very, very consistently at or right above 1 point per game throughout. Now, on the St. Louis side of things, Shen, 17 goals. He leads there. Assists, Ryan O'Reilly with 26. Shots leader is Pietrangelo with 125. Points per game, Perron, 1 point per game. Right on that 1 point per game. And so this is a nice test for a St. Louis Blues team that is kind of feeling like maybe they do want to take a run at another Stanley Cup. Maybe back-to-back does sound like a good idea. Their fans go, we don't want to get our hopes up yet. Next up, New Jersey in against Ottawa. You know you want to watch this. This starts at 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern. You know you want to watch this game, right? Or maybe you don't know that you want to watch this game, and maybe it's just this reality that's going to hit at some point tomorrow where you go, I kind of want to see what happens. Now, the New Jersey Devils are 12-19-6 over their last 10. They're 3-5-2. But they've been really up and down over their last 5. Their most recent loss was 5-4 against Toronto, and that was a game where they had some leads. Prior to that, they went to Chicago and won 7-1. Before that, they went to Columbus and lost 5-1. They lost 6-3 at home against Washington, but they beat Anaheim 3-1 before that. So they've won 2 of their last 5. On the Ottawa side of things, they're 16-18-4 over their last 10. They're 5-2-3. So Ottawa finding ways to win and get points and drive fans who want to see them tank, that driving them completely insane. Over their last 5, they beat Buffalo 3-1. They lost at home against Philadelphia 5-4. They won at home against Nashville 5-4. They lost at Tampa Bay 4-3, and they lost at Florida 6-1. So they're losing still enough games that their fans should be relatively happy with that if they're of the tank mind, and I think most of them are. But we'll see what happens from here. Goals leader for New Jersey is Kyle Palmieri with 15. Gusev leads them in assists. That's also 15. Coleman leads them in shots with 97. Points per game, Palmieri, 0.7. Now, on the Ottawa side of things, Duclair, 21 goals. A bit of a leader there. Assists, Chabot with 19. Shots, Tkachuk has 142, so that's the highest number on the board so far. Points per game, Duclair at .79. His points per game is higher than Palmieri's. Anthony Duclair's having quite the career year. I do believe it's a career year. I don't think this is an indication of his future and that he's going to be a 40-goal scorer from here on. I think it's an incredible run he's been on, and it's a lot of fun to document it while it's happening. So we'll see if they can continue it tomorrow. I wouldn't be surprised to see Ottawa win. Ottawa's pretty good at home, and New Jersey is pretty not good on the road. So you combine those two things, and you should have an Ottawa victory there. All right, moving along. Chicago. This game starts at the same time. Chicago in against Columbus. Now, because of the way these games are staggered tomorrow, I'm not going to be able to do two different reviews. I'm going to have to do just the one massive review video at the end of the day. But that being said, the games don't end that late tomorrow. It's kind of late, but not that late. So Chicago 16, 17, and 6 over their last 10. They're 4, 5, and 1. If you want to believe in this team, they give you games where you can believe in them. If you want to say, they need to tear it down, to heck with Stan Bowman, they give you those games as well. Their most recent game was a win against New Jersey, or against the Islanders, I should say, at home 5-2. Prior to that, they lost versus New Jersey 7-1, so they beat the Islanders, they lose to New Jersey. Yep, exactly. At Colorado, they won 5-3. At Winnipeg, they won 4-1, and versus Colorado, they lost 4-1 in the game before that. Now, Columbus, they're 17, 14, and 7 over their last 10. They're 6, 1, and 3. And any Columbus fan will tell you they're playing pretty well right now. Now, their most recent game was a loss, 2-1 at Washington. Close game. Prior to that, they won at the New York Islanders 3-2. And then they had 3 games at home against trap teams, so to speak. They won 5-1 against New Jersey, 3-2 against LA, and 5-3 against Detroit. So win, win, win. Against teams that, they're pretty bad teams, but they did get the win over them. So that's important. Now, Chicago's leader, it's Kane. Every stat that I used for this board is Kane. 20 goals, Kane. 27 assists, Kane. 139 shots, Patrick Kane. And points per game, 1.21, it's Patrick Kane. If Chicago gets anywhere near the playoffs, Kane has to be in the running for the Hart. On the Columbus side of things, Bjorkstrand and Dubois both have 12 goals to lead the team in that category. Seth Jones has 18 assists to lead their shots. Bjorkstrand, 122. Points per game, Dubois with 0.68, which I think is the lowest number of any team that I did a preview for tomorrow. So, Columbus, it's scoring by committee, and it's goaltending. As long as Korpisalo holds, this team has a chance. But it's a matter of how long, and is that going to continue? And we'll see. Next up. So the Islanders are in against Minnesota tomorrow. This should be a really fascinating one. Minnesota, of course, has a home-heavy schedule from here. They played a ton on the road. They really struggled on the road. Their record was a mess by the end of October. And now it's not so much of a mess. Now, on the Islanders side, they're 23, 10, and 3 over their last 10. They're 5, 4, and 1. But there are some troubling signs that the defense that Barry Trotz has been counting on, and the goaltending Barry Trotz has been counting on, most notably Thomas Greiss, that seems to be wavering. Their most recent game, they lost at Chicago 5-2. They lost at home against Columbus 3-2. They lost versus Anaheim 6-5. They won at Boston 3-2 in a shootout, and prior to that, they lost 8-3 at home against Nashville. So they've lost 4-5. So that's why the Islanders take a big drop in the power rankings this week, and I can't say they're a top row team. In order to get back into being a top row team, they have to go into Minnesota against a team that's lost 2 in regulation at home all season and beat them. Minnesota 19, 15, and 5 overall over their last 10. They're 5, 4, and 1, same record as the Islanders. How they get there's a little different. Their most recent win was at Colorado 6-4. Prior to that, they beat Calgary 3-0 at home. They lost 6-0 against Winnipeg, which looks like it's a one-off. They won at Arizona 8-5 in the most crazy wild game of the year. And at Vegas, they lost 3-2 prior to that. So for Minnesota, it's been kind of a mixed bag, but it still feels like they're going up. Now, scoring leaders, Barzal is quite prominent for the Islanders. 16 goals to lead there. 16 assists leads there as well. Shots, Brock Nelson leads with 106. Points per game, Barzal 0.89. On the Minnesota side, Stahl leads them in goals with 15. Suter leads them in assists with 20. And Dumba leads them in shots with 92. So Matt Dumba isn't putting up the offensive numbers one would expect, but he is generating a ton of shots. Points per game, Stahl leads them there with .82. So Eric Stahl has had quite the renaissance this year again to lead them in scoring. And for Minnesota, they're going to try to continue this winning streak that right now is at 2, try to push it to 3 with a win over a New York Islanders team that definitely looks more vulnerable now than they have at any point during the season. That being said, I need to change boards. I don't know why I have the Muppet theme going through my head, but I got the Muppet Show theme going through my head. I'm ready to start singing it and dancing it too. It's late. All right, Buffalo's in against Boston. This one starts at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern. For Boston, they appear to be turning it around. But it took a while to get here, so I want to see some continued excellence. And for Buffalo at 17, 15, and 7, it kind of feels like the bottom's falling out. The thing is, it's the Atlantic, so that shouldn't be a problem, and they should be able to keep pace. The problem is Toronto appears to be turning it around pretty good, and Tampa is getting better. So 4-4-2 in their last 10 are the Buffalo Sabres, and when you look at their last 5, they lost at home against Boston 3-0 2 days ago. At the time this goes live, it's basically been 2 days. At Ottawa, they lost 3-1. That was a big one. They won at home against LA 3-2, but prior to that, they lost at Philadelphia 6-1, and they lost at Toronto 5-3. Now, their leader is Jack Eichel in everything. Goals, 24. Assists, 27. Shots, 136. Points per game, 1.34. Jack Eichel is everything to this team, and it has to be really frustrating to him that he's putting up these numbers and the team is fading. Now, on the Boston side of things, they're 3-4-3 in their last 10. Not inspiring at all by any stretch, but they've won their last 2 games, and over those last 2 games, they've won by a combined score of 10-3. They won at Buffalo 3-0. They won at home against Washington 7-3, a team they don't regularly beat, and normally Holtby owns them and Rask gets owned by them, so that was just bizarro world. Prior to that, they lost 3 close ones at home against Nashville 4-3, Islanders 3-2, and LA 4-3. But they find a way to lose in extra time, which gives people a false sense of security in my eyes. But they're still losing, and yet they've won their last 2, so we'll see if they're on their way up. Or if Buffalo comes in and beats them in a close game tomorrow. Nothing will surprise me with the Bruins. Pastrnak leads them in goals with 28. He has come down off of that insane run he was on. They've now played 38 games, so he's not getting 50 and 50. I think it's pretty safe to assume. Marchand leads them in assists with 38. Shots, Pastrnak leads them there with 145. And points per game, Marchand with 1.46. So he's getting more points per game right now than Eichel, which is not an insult to Eichel. It just points out what I've been saying about Marchand for a long time, that I get why people don't like him, but he's very, very talented. And in some ways, I guess that makes the dirty plays more frustrating because, he doesn't need to do it. And there have been plenty of those players over the years. I could probably do a video on that. 10 guys who didn't need to play dirty, but they did. And Marchand would definitely be on that list. Just in terms of guys that were talented, competitive, sure, but they didn't really need to play dirty. Anyways, we'll see what happens in that one tomorrow. Can Buffalo turn it around? Next up, Detroit's in Tampa. This just looks like a sheep being led to the slaughter, doesn't it? Detroit had a lead on Florida and then decided not to do anything with it tonight. And I don't even know if they're going to bother with the lead tomorrow night against Tampa. They're 9-27-3 now, the Detroit Red Wings. Again, this one starts at 4 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock Eastern, as does this one. Monday night, there's only one game. So look for a lot of fun video stuff on Monday because there's only the one game that night. So 9-27-3 for Detroit. Over their last 10, they're 2-8. And it's been 5 losses in a row. Those 2 wins were in a row as well. So they just were sandwiched in between all the losing. The losing has been as such. Most recently, of course, tonight they lost 5-4 against Florida. Before that, they lost at home 5-2 against Arizona. They lost at Toronto 4-1. They lost at home against Columbus 5-3. They lost again at home against LA 4-2. They know how to lose and lose to teams that a lot of these teams, mild maybe playoff teams, they're not even really playing contenders until you come in against Tampa. But they're not in a playoff spot right now either. So yeah, Leaders for Detroit. Yes, there are leaders. Bertuzzi mostly, 14 goals. Leads the team there. He leads them in assists with 16. Shots, Dylan Larkin leads them there with 125. Points per game, Mantha, 0.83. So if Mantha hadn't gone through injuries, wasn't right now going through injuries, I don't know that necessarily Detroit would have a respectable record, but maybe they'd have more than 9 wins if they were healthy. Tampa, 19-13-4 over their last 10. They're 6-3-1. If they can be 6-3-1 over any 10-game stretch from here, they're making the playoffs, and they could end up with home ice advantage in the first round. Now, over their last 5, it does feel like it's starting to come together. They've won 3 of those 5. They beat Montreal 5-4, of course. Prior to that, at home they beat Florida 6-5, or 6-1, I should say. They went to Washington, lost 3-1. At home against Dallas, they lost 4-3. But prior to that, they beat Ottawa 4-3. So again, they seem to be keeping their head above water, and we'll see if this can, get them their 3rd win in a row, and then it's officially a streak at that point. Leaders for Tampa, Stamkos and Point are co-leaders with 14 goals. Assists, Kucherov and Hedman both have 27. Shots leader is Stamkos with 105. Points per game, Kucherov with 1.14 points per game. So he's not scoring like he did last year, but Kucherov's still well above a point a game. He's outscoring Pettersson, we'll put it that way, just for an example of a player that he is scoring more points than per game for when people talk about how cold he is. He's not going to get 128 points, but the team isn't going to get anywhere near what they had in wins last year either, so it all kind of balances out, I guess. Sure, if you don't think about it, I guess. Next up, Montreal in against Florida. So Montreal coming off of a really tough loss. They should have come out of Tampa with a win. They were up 17-0 in shots and 2-0 on the scoreboard. You got to bring that home, and they didn't. So now they go in against Florida, the easier of the 2 Florida teams to play. The Montreal Canadiens now 18-14-6. They're 6-4 in their last 10 over their last 5 games. Of course, they lost against Tampa 5-4. Prior to that, they beat Winnipeg 6-2. They lost against Edmonton 4-3. They beat Calgary 4-3, and they beat Vancouver 3-1. So they've won 3 of their last 5. This road trip continues into Florida. It's game 6 of, I believe it's a 7-game road trip. It's a long road trip. And they've kind of kept their head above water for the most part. The 2 losses were close, so we'll see what they do tomorrow in Florida. Florida's 19-13-5 over their last 10. They are also 6-4, so everything stays kind of close together here. 5-4 win against Detroit tonight, of course. Prior to that, they lost 6-1 at Tampa. They won at Carolina 4-2. They beat Dallas 7-4, and they beat Ottawa 6-1. So, pretty good run going for Florida overall. That loss to Tampa was concerning, and we'll see whether or not they're able to beat Montreal. Both teams will be at the second half of a back-to-back, so it shouldn't favor anybody when it comes to conditioning tomorrow. Nobody's more well-rested. Again, when I look at the scheduling between Christmas and New Year's, I think this scheduling makes a lot more sense than the scheduling we see the rest of the year. Why is that? Do they have the technology and they just don't use it? Leaders. Goals leader for the Montreal Canadiens, Tatar and Gallagher both have 15. Assists, Danault has 20. Shots, Gallagher with 150. He takes a lot of shots. Points leader per game is Tatar at 0.87. On the Florida side of things, Connolly leads them in goals with 15. Who had Connolly leading them in scoring this year on any level? Scoring points and goals, sure, but leading them in goals, that's unusual. Huberdeau leads them in assists with 35. Shots leader is Hoffman with 104. Points per game, Huberdeau, 1.32. So if you want an example of just how good he's been, he's at 1.32 points per game. Eichel's at 1.34. So Huberdeau, maybe he's a dark horse for Hart consideration. If Florida makes the playoffs and they end up finishing the season pretty well, maybe Huberdeau gets into that talk. I mean, I know Barkov would probably get his share of votes if Florida were to get that far, but yeah, just throw that out there. Why not? All right, last game on this board. Dallas in against Arizona. Now, I'm wearing Arizona because Arizona's got to bounce back. That game against Vegas tonight, that was kind of a worst-case scenario. And for Dallas, they had the overtime game against Colorado. I have the funny feeling that they may come out a little bit sluggish tomorrow. This could be a really low-scoring game, though. Dallas is now 21-14-4. So, pretty good record for them overall. Over their last 10, they're 6-3-1, equal with Tampa, pretty much right up there with Montreal and Florida. There's a lot of teams that are in and around that same area. But over their last 5, of course, they beat Colorado 3-2 in a shootout. Prior to that, they lost 5-1 against Calgary. They lost 7-4 at Florida. They beat Tampa 4-3, and prior to that, they lost at home against Edmonton 2-1. So your guess is as good as mine. I think they're in line for a down game against an Arizona team that needs a win. They've lost a couple in a row now. They're 21-15-4 over their last 10. They're 4-6. And if Arizona goes into a dive, I'm just saying right now for Arizona fans, everybody will focus on Taylor Hall. That's where the focus is going to go. It'll go on to Taylor Hall. Now, in their last 5, of course, they lost against Vegas tonight 4-1. Prior to that, they lost at Nashville 3-2. They won at Detroit 5-2. They lost at home against Minnesota 8-5, and they beat San Jose 3-2. So that is 2 wins in their last 5. They've got to turn that around. Because again, the Pacific, Vegas has now passed them. Calgary's getting close. Vancouver's not that far behind. It's so strange to say Vancouver's getting close. I don't know what world we're living in. It's really strange. But it definitely feels like the Pacific is tightened up. And Arizona, they have to watch themselves and they have to turn this around. They don't have time to be dawdling. Now, scoring leaders, Roope Hintz with 12 goals still leads Dallas in scoring. And most of those 12 goals were scored early in the year. Assist leader is Sagan with 20. Shots, Sagan has 142. Ton of shots, just not enough of them going in the net. Points per game, Sagan leads there with 0.79, which is low. That's low for a points leader, but it's still mildly ahead of Arizona's. Arizona's scoring, Garland leads with 12, so that matches Dallas. Assist leader is Schmaltz with 24, so he's got 4 more than Sagan. Shots leader is Keller with 121, so he's 20 behind Sagan in that one. Points per game, Schmaltz 0.75. So a 0.04 point per game difference between Schmaltz and Sagan, the leading scorers. Both teams kind of win the same way. We'll see if tomorrow night's a 1-0 nail-biter or if Hall can make his way through the Dallas defense, get a couple of goals, have one of those big games. Because he's kind of due, but he was kind of due when he was with New Jersey as well. He wasn't getting those games, and we all said, all right, well, probably needs a change of scenery. Now he's got that change of scenery. It's been 5 games. Tomorrow's game 6 for him in Arizona. And this is when you need to start showing something. Because again, if you want to make $10+ million in the offseason, you've got to have a really strong run with Arizona here to get there. That being said, I need to change boards one last time. All right, Philly. I still believe. I looked over all the stats and the numbers and the schedule, and I said, you know what? Still believe. The game against San Jose tonight, that's a one-off. We'll just toss that in the bin. It's like Minnesota and that 6-0 loss they took against Winnipeg. You just take that and you just throw it in the bin. Right? Well, they're in against Anaheim. This one starts at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern. There's no really late games tomorrow. I kind of like that. So that makes me kind of happy because, of course, Monday we only have the one game. So I'm looking forward to kind of a weird schedule because, of course, Tuesday we've got a lot of games. But because Monday's only got one, I can do the preview probably on Monday night. Probably not very late. And then Tuesday we have the Winter Classic, which should be a ton of fun at the Cotton Bowl. Now, Philadelphia and Anaheim. Philadelphia is now 21-12-5, so they've still got a good record. Over their last 10, though, they're 5-5. And they do need to stop the one up, one down. Over their last 5, they didn't really have that, but over their last 10, it's been the same amount of wins as losses. But tonight's loss against San Jose, which was 6-1, and it was ugly, was after the 4-game winning streak, where they won at home against the Rangers 5-1. They beat Ottawa 5-4 in Ottawa. They won 6-1 at home against Buffalo, and they won 4-1 at home against Anaheim. So this is the second half of their meetings for the year. So they've already beaten Anaheim and Philly. Now they've got to go in and do it in Anaheim. Anaheim, on the other hand, 16-18-4. They're fading from the playoff race. They're 4-6 in their last 10. It's just not going well for them. Their most recent game, they did win at home against Vegas 4-3. Prior to that, at the New York Rangers, they lost 5-1. At the New York Islanders, they won 6-5 in a bewildering game. Until now, I'm still bewildered by that score. because they're not a team that scores 6 goals in a game. At New Jersey, they lost 3-1, and at Philadelphia, they lost 4-1. So these teams reacquainting themselves with one another. Leaders. Goals for the Philadelphia Flyers. Van Riemsdyk has 12 to lead them in goals. Assists, Konechny, 23. Shots, Giroux, 116. Points per game, Konechny, 0.97. So, nice assortment of players there. Now, on the Anaheim side, Silfverberg leads them in goals with 13. Assists, Lindholm, 16 to lead him in that category. He's only got the 1 goal so far. Shots, Raquel with 103. Points per game, Silfverberg at 0.70. So it's not the lowest that we've seen, but it's still pretty low. And Anaheim does struggle with goals. If Philadelphia can jump on them early, we could forget all about that San Jose game by the end of that first period. Anaheim, they've been fragile at times over the last couple of months, and so it's up to Philadelphia to jump on them early, have them second guessing, and then it just kind of snowballs from there. All right, last game of the night, and it's Vancouver in against Calgary. So Vancouver coming out of that home win against LA, they faced 51 shots, and Markstrom's played, I think they said, 9 games in a row? Does Markstrom play tomorrow? Because he faced 51 shots. I would think no. You can't play Markstrom again tomorrow, right? Anyways, 20, 15, and 4 is the Canucks record over their last 10. Well, they've started winning. At home, they put together a decent winning streak. They've won 4 in a row. All of these at home. 3-2 against LA, 4-2 against Edmonton, 4-1 against Pittsburgh, 5-4 against Vegas, and prior to that, they lost 3-1 at home against Montreal. So Vancouver is trending in the right direction. Calgary, if you take out the Minnesota game, then they're trending in the right direction as well, basically. They're 20, 15, and 5. So if Vancouver wins in regulation tomorrow, they pass Calgary. How bewildering would that be? In their last 10, they're 6-3-1. So these two teams are very closely playing one another in terms of their last 10 games. 5-1 win at Edmonton was the most recent result for Calgary. Before that, at Minnesota, they lost 3-0. At Dallas, they won 5-1. At home against Montreal, they lost 4-3. And at home against Pittsburgh, they lost 4-1. So your overall numbers, I don't know. I would say Vancouver on the 4-game winning streak. The thing is, back-to-backs, Calgary could jump on them early. And depending on who's in net, things could turn. Now, scoring leaders. Pettersson with 18 goals leads Vancouver there. Besser with 24 assists. Shots leaders, Besser with 115. And it's weird because I said even in the review tonight, he seems to be passing when he should be shooting. So there's still more shots, I think, to be taken by Besser. Points per game, Pettersson with a 1.05 points per game average. Goals, Lindholm leads for Calgary with 16. Assists, Gaudreau with 20. He also leads them in shots with 108. Points per game, Matthew Tkachuk leads them in that category with 0.85. And Matthew Tkachuk is going to have to be his agitating best tomorrow night. And I don't see any reason why he won't be. But this is a good old-fashioned feud between Vancouver and Calgary. And if Edmonton's fading, this may be the big feud we see in Western Canada would be Calgary and Vancouver. It's been the big feud before. More recently than the Battle of Alberta was really interesting anyways. I'm thinking back to there was a playoff series not that long ago, by my standards, between Calgary and Vancouver. By other standards, it may be ages ago, right? 2015 and all that, and then, previous series. So these organizations are very familiar with one another, is what I'm trying to say. And we'll see how familiar these boys get tomorrow night and what ends up happening. So there you go. Let me know your winners, your picks, and all that other wonderful stuff. Don't tell me the future, though. I think it's obnoxious. Don't tell me the future. I just want to discover it when I get there. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I apologize this video is going up so late, but it's easier than trying to throw it together in the morning and post it as early as I would need to. So that being said, I'm done for tonight. I will talk to you guys again tomorrow.